quick write. You needed to write. What is a rectangle? What is a parallelogram? Somebody tell me. Natalie, you can put those on my desk. Thanks. You can put those on my desk. Thanks. You don't need them right now. A rectangle is, somebody tell me, a rectangle is, James?
A rectangle, oh, no, I didn't write it.
Oh, okay. Eva?
A rectangle is
I love that sentence. A rectangle is a quadrilateral. What are the rules to be a quadrilateral? Only 2 rules to be a quadrilateral. And there's a hint in the prefix quad. What are the rules to be a quadrilateral, Miss Anne?
has to have, I'm pretty sure 3 or more, or 4 or more, sides, angles.
4 only. Only 4.
Oh,
Not 4 or more. 4, period. That's it. Quad means 4. It doesn't mean 4 or more. 4 sides, 4 angles. Okay? Alright, a rectangle is a quadrilateral. Is that it? Alright, I need another sentence. Harley, a rectangle is a quadrilateral.
Either it is a polygon.
Okay, is that it? Okay, I need another sentence then. Matthew?
It's a cluster figure.
We already have that with polygon. I don't need to repeat that. Those are synonyms. Right now, all I have is a quadrilateral and a polygon. What else does it have? Ashlyn?
It has 4 corners with 4 right angles.
Again, we said that with quadrilateral. I don't need to repeat that. Right?
It has 4 sides.
We've already said that because we said it's a quadrilateral. Don't tell me it has 4 sides. We already said that by saying it's a quadrilateral. Okay? It has 2 sets of parallel lines. Now there's one more thing that we need to have. What's special about the rectangle? One more thing's real special about this rectangle, Savannah. Good. 4 right angles. I like it. That right is very special. It's not just any old angle, it's a right angle. Take those off. Open your notebook and get started. Alright, parallelogram is. Anyone get with me? A parallelogram is, Lee.
Polygon.
I like that start. Parallelogram is a polygon. Is that it? No. A parallelogram is, Caden.
Shape 4 angles.
And we could call that something fancy. What's that math word that we learned to say a shape with 4 angles and 4 sides?
Oh.
You're good. Keep going. Yes, you can. Give it a shot. It's a good chunking word. Look, you did it this time. Quadrilateral. And that means it has 4 sides and 4 angles. It is a quadrilateral. Is that it?
No.
What else? What else does a parallelogram have?
It is quadrilateral.
What else?
This is
Corbin, what else? No. else does it have? What else does it have? Right? What else does it have? Does it? Does a parallelogram have 4 right angles? No. James?
It has 4 angles. It has angles.
It does have 4 angles. Remember, we already wrote that when we wrote a quadrilateral. Because that's saying 4 sides and 4 angles. There's nothing else for a parallelogram. It's a polygon, it's a quadrilateral, it has 2 sets of parallel lines. What? No, not always. We just only have learned one. Alright, take a look at this. It is Brian's shapes. He's drawn these shapes. I've drawn these shapes. Brian says that all of his shapes are rectangles because they all have 4 sides. Think this in your head. You do not need to call out, especially if that's something that I've talked to you about. Brian says that all his shapes are rectangles because they all have 4 sides. Is he correct? Think first. Don't even raise your hand right now. And don't just think yes or no. You better be able to have some evidence. Why? That's what I want you thinking about. Brian says that all of his shapes are rectangles because they all have 4 sides. Is he correct? You're not raising your hand right now, you're just thinking. And once you think either yes or no, you need to come up with the evidence. Why?
I have that.
You're thinking. Why is he not correct? That's what I want to know. Why is Brian not correct? He's still right that they all have 4 sides. All of them have 4 sides. I counted. Why does that mean they're not rectangles? Please sit down. Mitchell, why is he not correct?
Because some of them do not have right angles.
And that is a
Problem.
well, this problem. What is that for a rectangle? A special A word that we just learned.
Attribute.
It is an attribute for a rectangle to have
4 right angles.
4 right angles.
And some of them do not have right angles.
Tell me one that does not have a right angle. Just one.
The parallelogram.
This one right here. And I love that you call it by its name. Great. This does not have right angles. No right angles. And that's very important for a rectangle. Is there anything else that doesn't have 4 right angles? Bryce, go put an X on it. Don't put your hand on it, just a marker. Alright, Bryce is going to X out another shape that doesn't have 4 right angles. Remember what right angles look like? They are the L. Which shape does not have 4 right angles? I can see one in the bottom row. Does it have right angles? No. It does not have 4 right angles. Great job, Bryce. Anything else? Anything else? Corbin, do you see something else that doesn't have 4 right angles? Alright, look. See if he's going to X out the right one. Great job. It has no right angles. Anything else? Anything else? Riley? Please stop talking. Thank you. Alright, somebody tell me what are our rules or attributes to make sure that these other shapes work. We've already taken care of the ones that don't have right angles. All of them have four sides that are up there. All of them have right angles. What else is an attribute of a rectangle that we have to make sure it has? Peter?
That you can fit the square.
That is not what I asked. Listen to my question again. I want to know what else is an attribute of a rectangle. We've got four sides and four right angles. What else do we need to make sure they have?
That it's closed.
Okay, are all of those shapes closed, no openings?
Yes.
So are they all polygons?
Yes.
Good. Anything else we need to look for? Matthew, do you remember? How many?
Two sets.
Two sets. Does this have two sets?
Yes.
Is it a polygon?
Yes.
Four sides?
Yes.
Four right angles?
Yes.
This is a rectangle. Yay. What about this one? Four sides?
Yes.
Four right angles?
Yes.
Polygons?
Yes.
Two sets here.
Yes.
Show me them with your hands. So I see a lot of verticals. Has the vertical parallel lines. Where's the other side of parallel lines? Horizontal. So this is a rectangle. What about this one? Does it have four sides?
Yes.
Four right angles?
Yes.
Polygon?
Yes.
Two sets of parallel.
Yes.
So is that shape?
Yes.
Some of you might be learning a new name for that shape. Kaylin has a question. I'd like to listen to Kaylin's question and go with you. Kaylin, what can I do for you, friend?
But the shape on the trapezoid, yeah, that. But wouldn't it still be one? It's because the square, it looks like a trapezoid, and that's right. But why can't the trapezoid be one?
So let's turn it over to you guys. Why is the trapezoid not considered a rectangle? And if you're confused as to what Kaylin's talking about, she's talking about this shape right here. She said the square works. Why can't the trapezoid work? Why is the trapezoid not a rectangle? It's missing some attributes, some of the rules. Which ones is it missing, Kate?
If you draw the ones in the corner, the ones on the bottom are going to be bigger than the ones on the top, because the one on the top is totally the same because it's going to the bottom.
Beautiful. So there are no right angles. Are there corners and angles on the shape? Yes, but they are not in that perfect L shape. You see that angle is not quite there? It's a little too small. That would be just a regular angle. It's too small. It needs to be that perfect L to be a right angle. There's something else that trapezoid is missing, though. You're right, it doesn't have right angles, but there's something else that it's missing. This is a hard one, so I'm going to award a bonus to Dolphin Dollar who can figure it out. What else is that trapezoid missing? We're right on the money. Kate was right on the money. It's not missing. I mean, it is missing right angles. I want to know what else is it missing for that extra bonus to Dolphin Dollar. Let's see if you can do it. All right, Matthew, give it a shot.
It's missing two parallel sides.
Yes. Does it have parallel lines?
No. It only has one set.
It has one set. Where are they? Show me with your arms. Ashley, keep those lines going. See if you run into each other. So are those parallel? Are these parallel? No. line, they're going to smack into each other. So where are the parallel lines?
Horizontal.
Horizontal. Parallel lines. I'm going to do it in blue so you can see. These are the parallel lines. If they keep going, please stop your side conversations. If those lines keep going, are they ever going to touch?
No.
What about these ones?
Yes.
All right. So what are attributes? I'm going to have you guys write this one. Don't think we need to continue, but great job, Susanna. Attributes are rules of shapes. They can provide different names, just like we learned with the square. With the rectangle and the parallelogram. If we have a shape that passes the rectangle test, it can also be a parallelogram. It can have two names, just like we talked about Eleanor. I could call her Eleanor. That's probably the best name. Or I could call her third grade student. That's still true for Eleanor, but my best name is Eleanor. Just like in our rectangle shapes, the best name for this shape is rectangle, but I could call it a parallelogram. Okay? Alright, so like I said, we're going to be working with two new shapes, the square and the rhombus. You should have a T-chart in your math notebook ready to go. This video is going to cover rectangles too, even though we know what rectangles are. It's going to give you a new way to think about parallel lines. Okay, so if you're confused on how they talk about parallel lines, that's okay. It's just a different way of thinking about it. It's going to talk about right angles again, to review what that means, that kind of thing. And then it'll start talking about some new shapes, the square and the rhombus. Okay?
Look at the shapes below.
I can tell you that column that you... Okay, third time's charm.
Has four sides.
Oh my gosh.
Do these shapes have anything in common?
Alright, so let's do this first. Do these shapes have anything in common? Raise your hand. Oh, look. Do these shapes have anything in common? Aiden?
Yes, the square and the rectangle do, because they
I want to know what all three shapes have in common.
all three shapes are quadrilateral.
They are all quadrilaterals. They have those four sides and four corners. Anything else?
In this lesson, you will learn to identify rhombuses, rectangles, and squares by looking at their shared attributes. Let's review. We already know that a quadrilateral has four sides. We learned how to find out whether or not parallel sides were a shape's attributes. To look for parallel sides, I pick two sides that are opposite from each other, like this top side and bottom side. I measure the distance between each of those sides with a ruler or with a piece of paper to look to see if no matter where I put the ruler or the paper, the two sides would always be the same distance apart.
I do want you to add that to your notes, that parallel sides have to be opposite. You can turn back to where we did our parallel lines drawings and notes from yesterday, but I want you to make sure that you know that parallel lines have to be opposite. And that makes sense with what we know about parallel lines. If they're not going to touch, they can't be right next to each other. They need to be opposite. Try your best on the spelling. Parallel sides are opposite. It's going to talk about parallel lines as being the same distance apart, and that's a correct definition. We talk about it more as they will never ever touch, but it's the same concept. Okay?
Paper. I will mark the distance between my two opposite sides here and here. No matter where I move my paper, the distance apart stays the same. These opposite sides are the same distance apart, so they are parallel. What about my right side and my left side? Here's my slip of paper again. I will mark the distance here and here. If I move my paper, I will notice that my line does not match, so they are not the same distance apart from each other. These opposite sides are not the same distance apart, so they are not parallel. Because this quadrilateral has one pair of parallel sides, it is called a trapezoid. Take a look at these shapes. What do all of these shapes have in common?
What do they have in common? In common is one of those compare words. I'm looking for the same, similar. What do they have in common, Bryce?
They all together they have 4 sides.
Okay, so yep, they all have 4 sides. Anything else that they all have in common, Corbin? Okay. Okay, so all of those shapes have parallel lines. It's fine. Thank you, though. It'll be all right. Okay. Aiden?
All of them
Something they all have in common.
have right angles.
We already know that each of these shapes has parallel sides, but all of the shapes also have square corners as an attribute. That means I can put an envelope or a sheet of paper inside of each corner and it will fit perfectly.
This is the other
Let me show you
definition
what I
of
mean.
square corners
Take a look at this shape.
or right angles.
I can get a sheet of paper or an envelope and place it in the inside of a corner and it will fit perfectly. How do I know if a shape does not have square corners? Let me check these corners. I'll place an envelope in this left corner. The envelope does not fit perfectly. The space inside of this shape's corner is bigger or greater than the space inside a square corner. I'll place a sheet of paper in this top right corner. It too does not fit perfectly. The space inside of this shape's corner is smaller or less than the space inside a square corner. I know this because the shape's right side is hidden beneath the paper. And even if I slide my paper over to the left, this side is still hidden. Let's take a look at 2 quadrilaterals. Let's see if we can find or identify which attributes these 2 shapes have in common. These shapes look like they may have parallel sides. Let's check. The top and bottom sides are the same distance apart. And the left and right sides are the same distance apart. Do these shapes have parallel sides? Yes, 2 pairs. What else do these shapes have in common? These shapes look like they might have square corners, do they? Let's check. Yes, all 4 of the corners in both shapes are square corners. Because these shapes have 2 pairs of parallel sides and 4 square corners, these parallelograms are rectangles. I know you might be confused because the shape of
These parallelograms are rectangles. So both those shapes on the screen are parallelograms. Both those shapes on the screen are rectangles.
on the right may look like a square to you. Well, you're right, it is a square. A square is a special rectangle. It is a rectangle that has all of the same length or same size. Let's take a look at 2 more quadrilaterals. Let's see if we can find or identify which attributes these 2 shapes have in common. These shapes look like they may have parallel sides. Let's check. These opposite sides are the same distance apart. What about these? Yes, they both have two pairs of parallel sides. What else do they have in common? These shapes look like they might have square corners, do they? This shape on the right has 4 square corners, but this shape on the left does not. So what else do these shapes have in common? It looks like the sides of each shape might be the same length. Let's check. I'm going to cut a strip of paper the same length as one of the sides. Now I'm going to move it next to each side to see if it is the same length. Are all of the sides of this quadrilateral the same size? Yes. What about this one? Yes, this one too. They both have 4 of the same length sides. Because these shapes have 2 pairs of parallel sides and 4 sides the same length, these parallelograms are rhombuses. I know you might be confused again because the shape on the right may look like a square to you, but you are right, it is a square. A square is a special rhombus. It is a rhombus that has 4 square corners.
So there are a lot of names for a square, and we'll talk about it because we talked about how there is a special kind of rectangle that is a square, and then we just learned about a rhombus, and a special kind of rhombus is a square. Alright, let's keep going. It is kind of weird to think about.
Let's take a final moment to look at a square. There are many different kinds of quadrilaterals, parallelograms, rectangles, and rhombuses, but there is only one kind of square. They may be of different size, but every square must have 2 pairs of opposite sides that are the same distance apart from one another. These opposite sides are parallel, and each square must have 4 square corners. And all the sides on a square must be the same length. There is only one kind of square. In this lesson, you learned to identify rhombuses, rectangles, and squares by looking at their shared attributes.
All right. Let's go back to our chart. All right. So attributes for squares. Let's start there. Let's start with something obvious that we know. As I'm filling it in here, make sure you're filling it in under your square section in your chart. Something easy peasy that a square must have is what, Natalie?
Every square has two sets of parallel sides.
Sure, we can say that. Every square has 2 sets of parallel sides. Sure. What else does a square have? Corbin?
4 square corners.
4, they use square corners. I use right angles or right corners. You're exactly right. They have 4 right angles or square corners. Either way you want to think about that, doesn't matter to me. Remember that means that those angles make that perfect L shape. If it has 4 angles, we know it also has to have 4, Eva?
4 sides.
4 sides. And if a shape has 4 sides and 4 angles, we call it a
quadrilateral.
quadrilateral. Okay? What else do you remember is specific to the square? What's a rule or an attribute that we learned about with the square? Kaden, do you remember? It is a polygon. We can put that. Sure. We can put that it's a polygon. Have fun. What else for a square? Savannah, can you help her out? Yes, all sides are the same length. And that's pretty special. We haven't had a shape that has that yet. Does a rectangle have to have all sides be the same length?
No.
Does a parallelogram have to have all sides be the same length? No, that's pretty special to that square. That's pretty special. Okay? Remember, underneath your square, go ahead and draw what a square might look like. I'm not going to draw it. I'm going to use a tool to draw it. But go ahead and try and make your best version of a square. That's going to be what our square looks like. I'll use technology to my advantage, Riley. See what I can. Oh, sure. Maybe draw nice squares. Alright, so you should have these on your square side. Some of these we've seen before. Which ones are similar to a rectangle? Ooh. I want you to get out a crayon. Actually, I want you to get out two crayons. Two new colors. I don't care if you use them. Alright, and I want you to make this key. I want you to put a star in one color, and that's going to mean that it is similar to a rectangle. Okay? So with one color, go ahead and put that key, because we're going to star the attributes or the rules that are similar to a rectangle. So go ahead and put your key down at the bottom of your page. That means that color star means that it's similar to a rectangle. What's something that they share? What's an attribute of a square that's also an attribute for a rectangle? Here?
That it's a polygon.
Yep. Both a rectangle and a square are polygons. Put a star with that color that you just picked out next to that attribute. Did you put a key? That's fine. Did you put your star next to the one that Peter just gave us? Polygon? What's another thing that they share? An attribute that's similar between a rectangle and a square. Mateo?
They're both quadrilateral.
They both are quadrilaterals. I love that I'm hearing those compare words and both. They both are quadrilaterals. Anything else that they share? Okay. They do both have two sets of parallel lines. Anything else that they share? That might be similar in a rectangle. James, do you know?
4 right angles.
Yep. A rectangle has 4 right angles, and a square has 4 right angles. Does a rectangle have to have all sides the same length?
No.
No. That's what makes a square different. Yeah.
So I'm confused. How's a square a rectangle then if a rectangle doesn't have the same size?
Is there a... Okay, so Maylee's asking, how can a square be a rectangle if it has this special thing right here at the bottom? Well, if we look at our rules to be a rectangle, is there anything about sides length on there?
No.
No. Does a square have two sets of parallel lines?
Yes.
Is a square quadrilateral?
Yes.
Square have 4 right angles?
Yes.
Yes. Is a square a polygon?
Yes.
Does it meet all those rules?
Yes. Yes.
So a square is a rectangle. But is this rectangle, does it meet all the rules for a square? Does it have 2 sets of parallel lines?
No.
Yes, it does. Does it have 4 right angles?
Yes.
Is it a quadrilateral?
Yes.
Is it a polygon?
Yes.
Are all sides the same length?
Yes.
No.
So basically, a square can be a rectangle, but a rectangle can't be a square.
A square can be a rectangle, but a rectangle cannot be a square.
Just like
A square can be a rectangle, but a rectangle cannot be a square. Something that's an attribute for a square, but also a parallelogram. Harley, give me one.
no. 2 pairs, no parallel sides.
Yeah, parallelograms also have 2 sets of parallel sides. I'm going to put mine on the side just because I don't have any room. So that's something that it has in common with a parallelogram. Parallelogram also has that rule. What else does a parallelogram also have that a square has? Eva?
4 sides.
4 sides, which we would call a quadrilateral. Parallelograms are all quadrilaterals. Very good. Anything else? Sure.
Polygon.
Polygon. Does a parallelogram have to have 4 right angles?
No.
It does not have to. Can it?
Yes.
Yes, but it does not have to. Okay? Does a parallelogram have all sides that are the same length?
No.
It does not have to. Can it?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. You do not all have to wear the same shirt. Do you have to wear a shirt?
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? So it's similar to think about it that way. Alright, let's quickly go over to the rhombus. Go over to the other side of your T-chart. Rhombus. What do you remember of the rhombus? So it's a little different because we don't recognize rhombuses or rhombi very often. Attribute of a rhombus. Bryce, give me one. Which we call quadrilateral. It does have 4 sides and 4 corners. We would call it a quadrilateral. What else does a rhombus have? This is a little trickier. You have to think back to the video. We don't see a rhombus every day. Savannah, what else does it have? It is a polygon. That is correct. There are no openings in it. It is a polygon. Yep. Aiden, what else do you remember about our rhombus?
It has 2 sets of parallel lines.
It does have 2 sets of parallel lines. So do a lot of things that we've learned about. 2 sets of parallel lines. What else does a rhombus have? Jada, do you know?
It has is a parallelogram.
Technically, yes.
Has 2 sets of the 2 sets. It has the same length of sides.
It does. All sides,
And the form.
yes, are the same length. A big difference between a square and a rhombus. A lot of people say that a rhombus is a square that's leaning over. That's pretty close to being true. A rhombus does not have 4 right angles. It just has 4 angles. Does not have 4 right angles like a square or a rectangle. Does it have to have 4 right angles?
No.
But it does have 4 angles. Yeah. For what word? Length. Says E. Yes. I'll return it for you, since clearly you're too busy thinking about the library instead of my own math stuff. Alright, I'm going to see if there's a tool